Welcome to our third installment of our 2026 AYA Talks series. The goal of our AYA Talks program is to bring topics that are important to adolescents and young adults, which are our community members and patients that are between the ages of 15 and 39, and provide opportunities for us to have conversations about those topics, learn together, support one another, and hopefully bring more awareness to the unique AYA experience, and topics that are really important to this community. Today, I'm really excited to have this installment be focused on the LGBTQ plus experiences in cancer care, and really shedding light and opening up discussion about specific experiences and considerations when going through cancer treatment, when you're part of the LGBTQ plus community, what that might look like, how that experience might differ, and the ways that we can support one another. And so I'm happy to introduce our two facilitators, or rather let them go ahead and introduce themselves. I'll let Alex, you go first, and then we'll have Susan. And of course, we'll have a little visitor from my cat. But thank you so much all for joining us.
Thanks so much, Gemma. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Courtin. My pronouns are she, her, and happy to be here. I'm a licensed professional counselor and art therapist, and I am a therapist on staff with Gemma at Life with Cancer, although I primarily lead groups now, and I'm no longer working at the hospital. But my practice focuses on trauma-informed care, working with chronic illness, and providing queer and gender affirming care.
Welcome.
Hey everybody, my name is Susan. I am a queer, cis, white lesbian living here on the unceded land of the Piscataway, which we call Maryland right now. And I am committed to advocacy and supporting my community, the LGBTQ plus people, both as a mindfulness meditation teacher and also as a facilitator of small groups where we do a combination of meditation, writing, deep listening, and sharing. I am a survivor of breast cancer, had that back in 2019. And so that is also kind of brought into some of the groups that I facilitate. And I'm glad to be here, and happy Pride, everybody.
Happy Pride. And so as we're beginning, for the participants that are present, um, if you would like to share, type into the chat. And again, as Jenna said, this won't be part of like the recording that's posted, but if you'd like to just share your name, your pronouns, and maybe something that has been a glimmer in your life recently, something that's brought you a little bit of joy, or a moment of connection that felt meaningful to you. If you'd like to share that. The night's weather is definitely a glimmer. For me, I planted dahlias in the beginning of May, and they're coming up now. Nothing's bloomed yet, but my 4-year-old son likes to say, "Mommy, the flowers are blooming up," which I hope he says forever. So it sounds like some young people and our fur babies in our life are bringing us all joy. And for other folks who are just joining, if you do have something to write or draw with, for an activity that we'll be engaging in the second half, that would be great to grab. So the reason I asked this question is because I've noticed that in a lot of my work lately, both in my practice and in Life with Cancer and in the queer cancer group that I'm leading, we've been holding space for the both and a lot, acknowledging that two sometimes contradicting things, right, can exist. And we have the unique capacity to hold space for both, although sometimes that can be a little bit perhaps disorienting. Um, and it's part of what is, I think, amazing about the human experience. And so in this month of Pride, right? This month and all that is celebratory, we're also acknowledging that there are a lot of things that are really hard, right? And that might be living with a cancer experience. Also might be facing a lot of the oppression that our queer community is facing right now in the world. And so just wanting to name that there's space for both things. Um, and it's important to acknowledge both. And one thing that we wanting to open up discussing is just to acknowledge that there are so many systemic barriers and harm that can happen as an extra added layer as a member of the LGBTQ plus community when experiencing treatment, when moving through the world, right? But in this particular space of cancer care, and wanting to speak to that. Susan, would you feel comfortable sharing your story to open us up?
Sure. Um, so I was diagnosed with breast cancer back in 2019, and I went through I'm in Maryland, so I went through the John Hopkins system. And what I found, like a lot of medical establishments, is that they're designed very for heteronormative, especially white, especially Christian um, places. And my experience with the system was a lot of finding either paperwork that I didn't fit on or just a lot of questions about um, the people that were around me, the people that weren't around me. And, you know, occasionally I would find a few providers or technicians um, that would just pause and take the time to listen to what was my experience and what was going on and what was happening. And I found it really interesting because they always said, bring, you know, a support person with you. When I was going through treatment, they're like, bring somebody with you. And as much as I would introduce the person and articulate a relationship, somehow the system fell back to a heteronormative one. And in particular, I had some male friends that accompanied me and came with me and immediately were identified as my husband, immediately, despite being corrected, despite being like told otherwise. And that's a lot of emotional labor. And it also, I know for me, it mattered. Even though it was exhausting, even though it was painful, like not to be listened and have to repeat myself over and over again. Um, and my biological family did not show up for this experience. So it was my chosen family and my friends that were there. And I think the medical establishment was just like, we don't know what to do with this, right? Like, we don't know how to, you don't fit into the mold, into that. Um, but I persisted on, you know, continuing to correct people, continuing to tell people, and continuing to cry sometimes about it. And I know these days now it's even harder, you know, to kind of bring that forward. And I think it also is a lot of discernment because safety needs to be the first kind of thing. Your safety needs to be the first thing. My safety needs to be the first thing. Um, and so I think how we get through it is in community. It's finding those other people, especially the other queer people, to lean on and to be on in going through systems that were never designed for us, for sure. So that's a little bit about my story.
Thank you, Susan. And I appreciate you acknowledging how exhausting the correcting can be when you're already facing an experience, right, with cancer that is already so draining, physically and emotionally, right? And so this other layer that's present, and it's important. And I think it also highlights the importance of providers, right? Being educated, being mindful, taking the time to pause and listen, that's key because it shouldn't be on the patient, the participant, to have to expend that much extra energy. And these spaces, which at Life with Cancer at the Smith Center, we're working hard to do, and it's not perfect because we are part of a much bigger system where there are a lot of issues. Yeah, yeah. And the other thing you named of feeling like safe with providers and adding on to your sense of safety was bringing chosen family with you, right? And acknowledging that the family that might be participating, whether biological or chosen, right, might be participating in our cancer treatment, might not be as affirming as we want them to be. Hopefully our chosen family is. Sometimes it's more on the biological side, right, where that can be an issue. And so navigating disclosure, right? Or like what spaces you're out in or not can be something that needs to be considered. And especially with adolescents, right? Like, what do their parents know? What are they having individual private conversations with their doctors? Those are all things that are important for us to talk about, and we hear as things that are coming up in our groups. Yeah. Anything y'all want to add to that piece?
Yeah, I know my experience as an adult going through this provided me some agency, and so I have, I can just feel a lot arising um, in that discernment of, do I speak up? Do I not speak up? Do I say something to somebody? Do I not say somebody? And how do I find, another person, who I can be safe enough with, right? I think in going through any of these systems, we're just looking for safe enough spaces, um,
Mm,
to be in, and to limit the amount of harm, right? I mean, was I out to every single provider? Probably not, formally or not that. And there was that discernment where I just don't have it in me today to kind of explain this again to you. But I will say,
mhm.
some of the kindest people were the people, at the front desk, where I remember one lady, she was like, "Oh, you brought a new friend today." That was like, yeah, this is so, like, she noticed like there was different people most of the days, but she was very kind about it, and I think that just saying, feeling that like, oh, you have somebody to support you, was, meant a lot each time that, they acknowledged that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and how we shouldn't make any assumptions about what support systems look like, because support systems can look so many different ways,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
making space for them to look different.
Yes, yes. And then understanding too that we live in systems that don't do that by design.
Mm-hmm.
By
Mm-hmm.
design, they don't do that, right? And so how do we, find our footing and then say, in this particular instance, I'm gonna, say something, in other ones, this may not be the best time, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, and so we named chosen family versus biological family, and then there's also acknowledging there's so many heteronormative assumptions, right? That's on that paperwork, right? And in the EHR systems we have, and wanting to, yeah, to challenge that and critique it, right? And fight for those things to be changed and more inclusive. Yeah. Um, so the other piece that I hear a lot and want to acknowledge is, like, as a queer person moving through the world, right? Like, there's this experience of feeling othered, right? And so then that can be magnified once there's a cancer diagnosis on top of that. And so having that complexity of being othered in multiple ways can feel quite overwhelming and feel quite isolating. And so wanting to hold space for how, like, the impact on mental health that has. Um, and as you named earlier, Susan, that extra emotional labor, excuse me, that has to go in to combat that. And wanting this space tonight to transparently name those things, right? Name those systems of harm, name that these are real issues, and also, right, because we're going back to that both and, hold space for resourcing, right? The ways in which we can tap into strength, feeling safe enough, right? So that we can take an exhale, right? We can feel a little bit more steady, more grounded as we move through our experiences. And so Susan and I wanted to share a little bit of a mindful practice and how perhaps these practices can serve you in those moments where maybe you are going to an appointment and your provider's not using your right pronouns or is not being affirming, or you just feel unsafe, right? If it's not safe in the situation, can you create a little bit more safety within your body, right? Because the body on so many levels is one of the things it's being harmed in these different ways. Yeah. Susan, would you like to say anything about, like, in general around mindfulness before we jump in?
Um, I guess just a couple. I mean, just the biggest thing is, our minds are always going to be active. So mindfulness meditation doesn't mean you're going to stop the thoughts, right? But you're going to be aware of them, and you're going to be aware when your mind, either if you have a focus on the breath, when the mind leaves and you start, wondering what you're going to have for dinner or what's on Netflix tonight or something like that. And your mind kind of wanders off. And so then it's this gentleness of coming back. And I did have somebody in one of my groups say, is the goal to be present all the time? And I'm like, oh gosh, no, right? Because we all need a break. We all need rest. We all need, a place to find where we can restore. And so I think with mindfulness and with meditation, it's a way, what you said, to come back to the body and just allow yourself to be in the present moment with whatever's there. And that, to me, the both and is going to be huge, right? Because like these establishments, though they have a lot of harm, also have a lot of care, right? It's where we're getting care for our bodies. So how do we hold the both and how do we make enough space in a world that wants everything to be so tiny and narrow? How do we breathe into enough space to know that the harm and the care are both existing, in that space?
Thank you. Thank you. So this is going to look a few different ways this evening. Some of these practices of mindfulness and practices that can be examples of resourcing. But the first one is a somatic-centered practice, somatic-centered art therapy practice, which I'd like to invite you in joining me in. So if you weren't able to grab your drawing paper or something to write on, as well as something to write with, what I'll be doing is I'll be leading you through a practice where you're noticing your senses, the five senses, and you're noticing your breath. And we'll be engaging in doing a contour drawing, which is once the line hits the paper, it's continuous, right? So once your pen or pencil hits your paper, we're leaving it there and not lifting it up. So it's allowing the line to be fluid. And if you'd like to close your eyes while you do this, I would recommend that if that feels safe in your body and comfortable. If not, I invite you to find a soft gaze that's not looking at your paper. Okay. So before we begin, I just want to invite you to take a look around the space that you're in right now and to just note to yourself 3 things that you see, 3 things that catch your eye. So that's us checking in with sight. And next, I invite us to check in with our breath. So I invite you again, if you're comfortable closing your eyes, you can. Just find a soft gaze. I invite you to drop into your body and bring your awareness to your inhale and your exhale. Noticing the rhythm and quality of your breath, the space that it takes up, the movement that it creates within you as your lungs expand and soften. And once you feel connected to this rhythm of your breathing, I invite you to bring your pen or pencil to the paper and to draw your breath as you breathe. Once you feel like you're in a good stopping place, I invite you to pause with that line and to shift your attention from your breath to the sensation of touch. So maybe that's how your feet are connected to the floor. Maybe that's how your body's connected to the chair or place you're seated. Maybe it's where your ankles are crossed or where you can feel clothing on your skin, your glasses on your face. So just being curious about the sensation of touch and when there's an area that stands out to you. I invite you again to create a contour line on your paper that represents that sensation. And now I invite you to shift your awareness to the sensation of sound. Sound waves that are entering and exiting your ears. Maybe that's both inside and outside your space. Maybe it's this space. And when you feel connected to sound, I invite you to bring your pen to the paper to create a one-line drawing, a contour drawing of the sound as well. Now I invite you to shift your awareness from the sensation of sound to the sensation of smell. So bringing your awareness to your nose, to your nostrils, breathing in, and seeing if you can smell anything. And if you can, once you do, representing that sensation in a contour line on your paper. And finally, the last of our five senses that we will tap into is that of taste. So, very connected to smell. I invite you to bring your awareness to your mouth, to your tongue, your taste buds. If you had dinner, maybe it's something from that. Noticing what you notice. And representing that on your paper when you're ready. And having now checked in with the five senses and the breath and the body, I invite you to bring your awareness to your mind's eye or to that third eye space. And just to see if an image arises for you. Could be anything at all. Being curious about what comes up. And when an image comes up for you, I invite you to, with a contour line, to draw it. And now I invite you to flutter your eyes open if they were closed and to take a look down at your drawing, the representations of your senses and of your breath. And just taking it in to notice what you notice. Perhaps the line quality of one sense is different from another. Maybe that gives you information about perhaps what felt more accessible or not, or a sense that felt easier to get in touch with. And looking at your image as a whole, if there's any way you feel that it could be contained a little bit more or grounded, I invite you to draw a containing line or a grounding line on the bottom so that it feels a little bit more complete for you. Okay, thank you. And I'm just curious for those that participated, if there's anything you'd like to put into the chat about what you noticed or what that was like to engage in. Jenna, thanks. So sometimes touch can feel like a harder one to get in touch with. Sometimes, yeah, where we have to let go of what it looks like. 'Cause it's not about what it looks like. It's not about what the lines look like. It's about the process. And the reason why there's the invitation to close the eyes is so you can really get in touch with how your body is feeling that sense and not be distracted by the image of it. But drawing it helps us focus on it more. Found myself centered on my senses rather than drawing. Yes. Yes. So sometimes this is a technique that can amplify our awareness and ground us in the present moment. sometimes even just taking a moment to drop into the body to notice the breath and then just simply draw the breath on its own can be a helpful resourcing tool. If your nervous system is feeling a little bit activated, it can be a good way to tap in. That's like a tangible, concrete thing to use. And mindfulness practices can look so many ways. Sometimes it is about noticing what's around us in a mindful way, and sometimes it's about dropping inward and being with the breath and just being in the here and now. So on that note, once we've done a little bit of grounding, I hand it off to Susan to lead us into part 2.
So we thought maybe we would just take a little bit of time to have a meditation. So I'll do a little bit of guiding in that you can keep your eyes open, closed, look down, and just a matter of take a minute here just to give yourself a comfortable posture, whatever that looks like, feels like for you in this moment. It could be sitting up on a chair, laying down on a bed or a couch. Meditation can be done in multiple postures, so it's not always like just sitting cross-legged. So whatever looks like a comfortable position for you, just find yourself taking that, wiggle the body in any way you want to, and taking a nice deep breath in and a slow exhale. In the inhale, it's a gathering of our attention, and the exhale is a grounding. These conscious breaths can bring us back into the present moment. Allowing the exhale to be a little bit longer than the inhale. It can be a signal to the body to relax. Maybe 1 or 2 more conscious breaths on your own time. Gently closing the eyes or a soft gaze down. Simply notice what you notice in this moment. A gentle body scan, checking in with the feet and the legs. Noticing any areas of warmth or cool. Any areas of ease or tension. Feeling into the place that you're making contact with the chair, the cushion, the couch, the bed, and feeling into that support. And knowing whatever you are resting on is resting on the earth. And the earth is always here as a support. Sensing into the front body and the back body, the hands, the arms, the shoulders, the neck and the head. And bringing the whole body into your awareness. In this moment, this body breathing. And notice where the mind goes when the attention is on the body. Simply noticing the thoughts and the directions that the mind goes. It's what the mind does. And as best you can, dropping any judgment or critique, allowing the breath to create more space for all that is arising to simply be in this moment. And then touching into the heart. How is your heart in this moment? The feelings and the emotions that are arising are also welcome here. And allowing that breath, returning to the breath, to create more and more space. Everything is welcome here, and everything is shifting and changing, moment by moment, breath by breath. Allowing yourself to be just as you are in this moment. Not trying to make something happen or have a particular experience. Allowing yourself to be just as you are in this moment. The mind is overly busy. It may just be a connection to one cycle of breath. Noting the inhale and a pause, the exhale and a pause. Allowing yourself to be exactly who you are in this moment. Kindly and gently, in any way you want, thanking yourself for taking this time to simply be, to come into this space, into community, to connect with one another, and to connect with yourself. And taking a deep breath in, feeling the breath once again in the body, and opening your eyes to return to the group. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Susan. I'm curious to hear from our participants how that was for you to pause. I know for myself, I found it a little bit hard to hear perhaps some sounds of my family in the background and really want to be in the present moment. But I did keep noticing. I noticed and I tried to come back, which I think is part of the practice. Mm. Going in and out of the moment, but feeling much lighter. Yeah, sometimes it can take a few minutes to really settle into it. I appreciate that use of the word surrender. Mm. Listening to the calm direction is helpful in guiding to release. Yeah, and that's an example too. Of sometimes some people respond in different ways to just sitting in silence versus to sitting when something is guided. And sometimes that guidance can be quite helpful and supportive, particularly if someone might be newer to meditation. I'm curious if anyone can speak to how they might see this as a supportive practice, either the checking in with the senses, just taking a moment to pause and notice the breath in your journey right now, whatever that might mean for you, wherever it is. Can you see using these as resources? Yeah, this practice can definitely be helpful in moments of overwhelm, moments of anxiety. Yeah, when moments in life feel too big. And maybe that's, going to your next appointment and taking a moment before you walk into the hospital or walk into the doctor's office to breathe. Maybe that's simply when you're still in bed and you don't want to get out yet and starting your day, right? Taking a moment to just notice how you feel. Yeah. I really appreciated, Susan, the language you used around noticing what we're seated on, feeling connected to the earth. And I feel like that's something that I can say to myself as a helpful resource.
I think it's another way to tap into support, right? Like
Mhm.
the earth is there. We know whatever we're sitting on, we're resting on the earth to really hold us and support us in whatever is going on. So I too find it to be very helpful to be like, oh, even if I look out the window, I'm like, yes, I'm connected, to kind of a bigger picture and to nature.
Yeah, and we don't always have to be connected to nature. I'm glad you said that. Because sometimes that can simply be looking out the window and seeing the way the light is moving through the leaves and the trees, or how the wind is blowing something. Being in nature and even a mindful practice in nature doesn't always have to be doing some, big, expansive backcountry, be in the woods type thing. It can be a quick, soft moment. Yeah. And so I think acknowledging the importance of resourcing while also acknowledging the importance, as we named at the beginning, of being in community, right, are two like really important parts of our care and our well-being. Um, we're not meant to navigate any of this alone, right? People need people, and these are helpful spaces to turn to. And actually, Susan, is this an opportunity perhaps to share about the spaces that you lead that people can join?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I've said too, like, I know when I was going through my journey, one of the things I had in my mind was I'm not going to go through this alone. And so, I reached out to a lot of people. Some people showed up, some people didn't show up. Um, and I met new people, right? So I think community and family took on lots of different places. So out of that came an LGBTQ plus meditation group that I lead every Tuesday morning. It's and I call it just sitting. It's from 7:30 to 8 every Tuesday morning. We've been going for I think it's almost 5 years now, and it's a place to just in community touch in. A little bit of chit chat in the beginning, but we just sit. I guide like I did here, maybe a little bit longer, and then we sit for a little bit, and it's really nice. We get different people. I have people from this area, plus probably up and down the East Coast. It's a little bit early for people to the west of us. So that is 7:30 to 8 every Tuesday morning. And then there's also a local LGBTQ plus Sangha. Sangha is the um, term used in Buddhist circles for a community. And so the LGBTQ plus Sangha meets the second Saturday of every month at 4 o'clock. And it's a hybrid. So we meet at Seekers Church over in Tacoma, DC, right by the metro. And it's also online as well. And so this group has been around for, I don't know, I've been going to it for like 13 years, but I think it's been around for about 20 years. And again, it's another community space where um, we meditate, there's a topic, and people share, and there's lots going on in the world for queer and trans folks to talk about. So it's another space that is very welcoming, and that supportive community that I think everybody can use. So that group is through what's called IMCW, which is Insight Meditation Community of Washington D.C. Um, and so I know I've given Gemma the information, for those if people want to look to join. They're all drop-in groups, um, and they're all what we call Donna-based or donation-based. If you want to, give the teachers a donation, you can. If not, all of these are freely offered. And so it's nice. The Tuesday morning is only online. The other Sangha is a hybrid one as well. So it's nice to have these queer and trans spaces for people to connect inward and to get support from other people too.
Thank you. Thank you. And then our Life with Cancer group is on the other end of your Tuesday. It's the second Tuesday of every month from 5 to 6 p.m. and we meet virtually. And this is for, again, it's for adults, but being in queer community together, and you can be at any place in your cancer journey, whether you're beginning treatment, new diagnosis, or you're in survivorship.
Thank you both for such wonderful experientials and information. And for all of our participants, not only present here, but everyone that registered, I'll be sending a follow-up email with the recording of this webinar, as well as all of the resources that have been provided. So that way community can continue to build for those who need it. We'll take a second just to have an opportunity for Q&A. Whether those are questions from our participants or comments that you'd like to share about any of the information given today or about your own experience. And feel free to use the chat, or I think there's a Q&A function as well. Oh, looks like we have one. We have a question. What does boundary setting look like when you're tired of educating providers on your identity?
Mm. One thing I will say that I know my group participants have shared, and my clients have shared, and I say this because I'm a member of the community, but have not had the experience of living with cancer, but is that having that support person, if a support person can be with you, who's willing and able to take this on to help support your voice and be an advocate, that can be a really helpful space. And can that person also support you in engaging in a really direct conversation with providers around the harm that it's causing when it's no longer affirming or hasn't been affirming? Susan, is there anything you'd like to speak to?
The only thing I'd say is sometimes boundary setting looks like self-care, right? Where just put it to the side and, you try your best to not have it impact you or wreck your day or your week, whatever. And that's where, like it's discernment. Some people aren't worthy of your education or emotional labor. And
Mm-hmm.
that to me, that's self-care. It's just like, you don't get the education I could offer you because you're not getting it. And I need to take care of me. Right. And so to me, that's what the boundary looks like. It looks like self-care.
And in those moments too, acknowledging that if it's not going to happen in the healthcare setting, right? Tapping back into those community spaces that are affirming and that do feel safe.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I know group members, right, might acknowledge there's maybe a boundary that was crossed in treatment, and they bring that to the boundary of group to share with us so that we can be, upset about it together and also validate that experience.
That's awesome. That's really awesome.
Mhm. Wonderful. Are there any other questions or comments from the group and participants today?
I know we had some potential prompts that we could also ask. Gemma, would that be okay?
Absolutely.
And again, if participants still want to put something in the chat or ask, please do. But I guess our question for you that we can also bring back to our teams is, what do you wish providers understood about the queer cancer experience, and specifically around the AYA experience as well, being an adolescent or young adult in the cancer space?
While we're waiting to see if anyone wants to kind of put their thoughts in the chat, I know something that I've talked with some of my adolescents that I've worked with before is their experience, and even just, young people in general, and, of all ages, that there's sometimes this pressure of if they're going to come out, it has to be something distinct, and they're not, the pressure of like having to put any kind of labels or have any of that be shared. Sometimes, I've had teens that I've seen for therapy going through this experience that are like, I sometimes that in the effort to be affirming, I feel like I'm forced to have share labels or have to use certain
Mhm.
language when I'm still kind of figuring out what all of this means. And I know what boundaries feel good, but I also don't have all the answers yet. And sometimes having those questions posed to them can feel uncomfortable.
Mhm. Yeah, and acknowledging that it's fluid and changing, and
Mhm.
yeah, that there's not an answer that fits on this binary. Yeah. We have a participant that shared, I wish they understood their own bias. I think a lot of providers don't necessarily think they have more to learn. Being open to constantly being educated is important. Yes. Acknowledging that there's not like a competency checklist, right? That like once you can't just check everything off and be good. This is a lifetime of learning and being open and curious, and listening. I think deeply listening to our clients, to patients, right? Is a piece of that. We have another one. I wish they understood that every journey in person is unique. To be open to knowing the amount shared may vary. Absolutely. Yeah, that it should be taken on a case by case basis. Yeah. Um, Another question we'd love to pose to participants is, what has helped you feel the most supported during your treatment or survivorship?
I know one common one I hear from patients a lot is just like the importance of the friendships, the friends that already make up their um, support system, the people that have shown
Mhm.
up for them before have consistently been that safe person.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, so having providers create open spaces to share as they're comfortable, or share as the patient's comfortable, not questioning what's shared, but rather echoing thoughts and feelings to reaffirm what's being said. So being affirming and validating, um, yeah, and the social group, so folks don't feel alone and isolated in the experience. Yeah. And our last question is just going back to that resourcing. What helps you feel grounded or connect with yourself during change? Journaling, being in nature, confiding in close friends, being at peace at home with your animals, our fur babies. We can never bring them up too much. A purring cat is very grounding and therapeutic. I actually was just leading a resourcing tool actually where you inhale and on the exhale you hum. And we were talking about how that would very much felt like, oh, we're getting in touch with purring. Yeah, that can be so regulating. We co-regulate with our animals. Yeah, that's all we have for this evening. And to close, I would just invite us to take a few collective breaths together. Taking a deep breath in and let it out. Breathing in and out. Once more, breathing in and let it go.
Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us. Thank you, Susan and Alex, for helping us create this space today. As mentioned, I'll be sending a follow-up email once this recording is available for all of our participants, as well as many resources to continue looking into. And we hope to see some of you also join us for our future AYA talks. Please know in collaboration with the Inova Health System and Peterson Life with Cancer, that we are going to be continuing providing these spaces to have these topics and conversations. So you're always welcome to reach out to me as well if there's a topic that you would like to be highlighted. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.